Member for Transport and will be chairing this meeting. Before we start, we have a little bit of housekeeping we need to do, and then we will do some introductions, and I'll explain a little bit about how the process is going to work. So, firstly, that housekeeping information. We're not expecting a fire alarm to that I know, so if the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and the public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. And we will assemble at the turning circle at the end of King Henry Street past the University Park building. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust's fire marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. And please, can everyone use the microphones and remember to switch them off when they have finished, otherwise the camera will remain on you. Everyone speaking will be on camera, apart from possibly some people over to the far right. Please could everyone ensure they speak directly into the microphone and to ensure that the audio is clear on the live stream. And basically, if you press your button, it will go red, and that will be you speaking. And when you finish, please press it again, and it will go off, and it will stop recording what you say. So, I've introduced myself. I'd now like to ask the councillors attending this meeting to introduce themselves, starting perhaps with Councillor Bosher.
Councillor Simon Bosher, I'm the Conservative spokesman for Transport.
I'm Councillor Graham Heaney and I'm the Labour Group spokesman for Transport.
And I'm Councillor Emily Strudwick, Portsmouth Independent Party spokesperson.
Thank you, and if I could ask officers to do the same, starting on our far left.
Oliver Taverner, Principal Transport Planner.
Hayley Chivers, Transport Planning Manager.
Bethan Clements, Transport Delivery Manager.
Barbara Thomas, TRO Team Lead.
Okay, Denise, shall we start from you?
Denise Bastow, Parking Office Manager.
Felicity Tibbury, Assistant Director for Transport.
Apologies, I'll have to switch between glasses to see people, and occasionally that will not be very smooth. We also have a number of deputations being made today by members of the public, and I will ask them to introduce themselves. If you're planning just to kind of sit and observe, then there's no need to introduce yourself. It is just so that I know when to call upon you and to ask you to speak at the right moment. If I miss someone out and you think your topic is being spoken about but you have not been called, please tell me. So, deputations. Can I have some show from the people who are making deputations today? Okay, there's more than usual. Can I see, I have some names down here. So, is there a Ken Ockel in the room? Ken Ockel, my apologies.
Within the 6-minute allotment, if that's possible, please.
Fantastic. You've already got to part of where I was going to have to go to later, so thank you. There's shared time for each individual item. There is a Mark Turner. Fantastic. A Jan Jenkins. And a Graham Bowers. Okay, fantastic. I have a Lee Lashley. Martine Parry. Jake Dealey. And Tom Maisie. Okay, and you've all organised yourself relatively neatly in an orderly fashion. Thank you. So the way today's business will be done, we have two more items of sort of formal council things to do, apologies and declarations of interest. And then for each of the items, there will be a presentation by officers. There will then be an opportunity for people to make their deputation. Then there will be questions from the councillors who are present, and then a period of time when they can also make some comments, and then we'll finally come to a decision. So in terms of apologies, I haven't actually received anything from Councillor Standen. He's not well. Okay, thank you. Any declarations of interest? In that case, we're going to move to item number 3 on the agenda, which is proposed waiting restrictions, various roads, PO 4024, and Barbara, you are going to speak on this, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor. This report is to consider objections to proposed waiting restrictions in various roads across the city, and the reference number is P040 2024. Minor waiting, loading and parking restrictions are proposed from time to time in response to inquiries and requests from residents and other interested parties. The various sites, usually around a dozen sites, are proposed as a single traffic regulation order, or TRO. Objections to the proposals are reported to the Cabinet member for them to make a decision. This TRO proposed waiting restrictions at 12 sites, and objections were received in respect of 7 of those sites. The restrictions at the remaining 5 sites will be introduced under delegated powers. The 7 sites where objections were received are Thornton Close, where 11 objections were received to a proposal to introduce 20 metres of no waiting at any time restrictions in the form of double yellow lines on one side of the road where vehicles are currently parking on the footway and obstructing access to a property and preventing pedestrians from using that footway. Next site is Auckland Road West, a narrow road where it is proposed to implement double yellow lines in place of a parking bay which, when occupied, the owner of the garage opposite is prevented from accessing. 6 objections were received from residents who were concerned about the loss of parking space. The next site is North Harbour Road. This is the main access between the Emergency Response Centre for South Central Ambulance Service, or SCAS, onto the road network. Currently, vehicles are usually parked both sides of North Harbour Road, which narrows the running carriageway and affects ambulance response times when ambulances meet an oncoming vehicle. A proposal for double yellow lines on one side of the road attracted 3 objections, including from staff at the SCAS Resource Centre. Given the concerns, officers have engaged further with SCAS managers, and it is recommended that this item is deferred so that officers can continue to work with SCAS to find an acceptable solution. Next site is Ashurst Road. This is a narrow residential road. Double yellow lines have been proposed in response to a request from residents. Introduction of double yellow lines would enable vehicles to pass along the road, and particularly large vehicles such as dust carts. 1 objection was received, although the objector didn't state the reason for their objection. Jervis Road. This is a proposal to introduce double yellow lines on the build-outs on either side of the road to prevent cars parking on them, which obstructs pedestrians crossing and damages the roots of street trees. 1 objection was received, although this appeared to be more of a general complaint about the permit parking scheme in force in the road. Harwich Road is a residential cul-de-sac. A request for double yellow lines at the closed end of the road was received from a resident whose access to their driveway is frequently obstructed. On inspecting the site, it was noted that vehicles park both sides of the road, partially on the footway, and force pedestrians, including wheelchair users, onto the carriageway. A proposal to introduce double yellow lines along one side of the road and the whole of the turning head attracted 8 objections and a petition signed by 32 residents against the proposals on the basis of the loss of places to park. Mindful of the concerns of the community, a revision with shorter lengths of double yellow lines has now been designed. And the last site is Wiley Road and its junctions with Conham Road and Westwood Road. This is a proposal to introduce double yellow lines around junctions in response to residents' requests concerned about the reduced visibility at junctions caused by vehicles being parked right up to junctions. Colleagues in waste management have also expressed concerns about access difficulties experienced by dust cart crews, sometimes leading to missed waste collections, which has resourcing and financial implications. 8 objections were received in relation to the loss of parking. Mindful of the concerns of the community, a revision with shorter lengths of double yellow lines has now been designed.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay. So I'm going to try and take these in order in which they come in the papers in terms of asking for deputations. So I don't believe we have any deputations for Thornton Close, but we do for Auckland Road. So I'm going to ask people to put their microphones on and give a deputation. You're sharing in the order of 12 minutes. And I believe that Ken O'Kell is going to speak first.
First of all, thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to come along today and just express some of the difficulties we've been having parking. We live at number 11 Clarence Parade. We have a double garage backing onto Auckland Road West. Auckland Road West is a one-way street, very narrow, and increasingly busier these days because of what's happened is that it's one of the entrances now into Palmerston Road. You can't get into Palmerston Road off Clarence Parade. So it's attracting a lot of taxis down there and delivery vans. I was very interested and grateful to receive the engineer's report because the engineer is saying that to park a car you need 6 meters, basically. You can get away with 5, it's a bit of a struggle, but in our case, by his measurements, we're down to 3.2 meters to try and swing my car into the drive. That very often gets reduced, and I know one of the complainants is here today. That is parked at the complainant's house, the van. It's overhanging the parking lines. I've got to swing in here, and it's reducing my gap to about 3 meters. And that is very, very difficult, and it's very dangerous. I've photographs here of my car where it's scraped just to try and get it into the garage, and I'm a good driver, but there are occasions when it happens, and each time it happens, it's a £200 panel respray. The car I've had is now 22 years old, and it's classified as a dirty diesel. It's a Euro 3, and it's time for me to replace that car. It's the narrowest car I can find. It's only two seats across at the back, and it's smaller than a Mini, but a little bit larger than a Fiat 500. I want to change that vehicle. I want an electric vehicle. I want to put a charger in the garage, and I want to be able to drive a family saloon in there. We're grandparents. We've got 2 young children and a daughter. I need 5 seats. I've got 2 at the moment, but I've borrowed cars, demonstrators from Honda. I've tried Vauxhall. I've tried very small BMW. I can't get them in, basically. I've tried and I can't get them in. The garage is amply big enough. It's the swing in that's giving me a problem. And it's when people park like this and come to a meeting like this wondering why I'm complaining. Getting out with my current car, I explained the difficulties, it's sometimes between a 3 and a 5-point turn to get it out of the garage. Driving it in is a little bit easier, and so I'd just like to make that a consideration. Would you like to say anything about that?
Just to add, thank you very much for hearing our deputation. A lot of the complaints seem to be, we agree, it is a busy road. A lot of them talk about how busy the road is, and it has got busier. There are delivery wagons going down within inches of our back gates, and I think there is a problem with the, if you like, our side of the road, because the vehicles mount the pavement, and it has got busier, and taxis are going at quite a speed. There was one last night that must have been about 35 miles an hour, and when we're trying to get in and out of the garage, it's quite often that we have to do it several times. We have to go further up the road and reverse back in order to allow a car through so that we can then take our time to get into the garage. We're not unaware of all the negative, we don't like to take a parking space. We are aware of disabled parking, but we just ask that the engineer's report be considered here, because there seems to be very specific numerical data that suggests that, yes, we are having a problem, and we are. But thank you very much.
Thank you. If I can now ask Mark Turner to speak, please.
Good morning, thank you. My objections to the parking restrictions in North Harbour Road is, sorry, you're proposing putting yellow lines on the south side, which is doing away with 43 parking spaces, when logically the ambulance access is on the left-hand side for the emergencies, and that is the side we believe should have the yellow lines.
Sorry, Mr. Turner, I'm going to stop you. It's my mistake. You're talking about the North Harbour Road, and I'd like to complete on the Auckland Road
Oh,
first,
yeah,
and
sorry.
we'll come
Yep.
back. That's
Yep.
my error.
No, fine.
I have Jan Jenkins also down to speak about Auckland Road.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to object to the proposal. I live at number 7 Auckland Road West, which is directly opposite the garage that's under and the access that's under consideration. The double yellow lines will be directly in front of my home and will affect my neighbours in Auckland Road West, Richmond Terrace, Netley Terrace, and those within the KC West South Sea parking zone. In the public document pack 3.5.1 and 3.5.3, the statements supporting the application are incomprehensible, bordering in one instance slightly on farce. I have lived in Auckland Road West since 1991. The sitting room windows and the first floor bedroom window directly overlooks the garage. Therefore, on numerous occasions, over many years, I see the two vehicles entering and leaving the garage. The current owners made a planning application dated the 20th of March 2007, showing they were resident at least from this date. Therefore, they have had 18 years of practice entering the garage with cars constantly parked in the parking bay under question. I often see the smaller of their vehicles enter the garage in one smooth manoeuvre and exiting using 3 manoeuvres. This is exactly the same for drivers when parallel parking in our very busy city, or in my case when I reverse onto my driveway. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it requires manoeuvring. Obviously manoeuvring around vehicles in the street. I wonder why, after 18 years, this is suddenly a problem. Anyone who knows Auckland Road West knows it is rare for any parking space to be vacant for any longer than a few minutes, day and night. Do the owners of this garage expect everyone here present to believe that in the last 18 years, the two cars have either been unable to gain entry or have had their cars trapped inside their garage? The other claim that the adjacent pavement is largely obstructed by street furniture and wheelie bins is also somewhat far-fetched. Yesterday, I took 3 photographs. Councillor, you won't be able to see these from here, but could I please submit these?
I'm happy to take them, and you can pass them round to the other councillors if you wish.
Thank you. Thank you. So yesterday I took 3 photographs. It happened to be a dual bin collection day. For 6 days out of 7, there are no bins on the street. There is 1 piece of street furniture adjacent to the garage. There are 2 telephone poles some distance from the garage. I understand suspended parking cannot be applied to double yellow lines. Only emergency vehicles may park. What do the residents in Auckland Road West do when removal vans require access? Parking is such a problem in Southsea for utility vehicles, tradespeople, residents, visitors. None will be able to use the current parking space. It will not only affect trade persons coming to Auckland Road West to maintain properties, it will affect the businesses in Osborne Road and the precinct.
Jan, I'm just going to ask you to make sure you come to a conclusion.
Yes, I will. Thank you. The applicants own a building housing a large double garage which provides secure off-street parking for their 2 vehicles. Additionally, they want a permanent parking space in the road reserved by the double yellow lines for their own convenience and without payment. This is neither equitable or neighbourly. All other residents pay a yearly fee to street park. Granting the removal of 1 parking space will set a precedence for the whole road. It is possible another 7 properties on Clarence Parade will claim they have difficulties accessing their garages in Auckland Road West. Therefore, our short road potentially might lose 8 parking spaces. Please refuse this request on the grounds that after 18 years' practice, these particular residents demonstrate each time they enter and exit their garage that they experience no more difficulties in manoeuvring than anyone else. If you allow this request, you will be exacerbating local parking problems for residents trying to park near their homes and impact local businesses, trade persons and visitors. Please refuse this request for double yellow lines outside my home in Auckland Road West. Thank you very much for listening.
And thank you. I have Mr. Bowers. I don't have what you're speaking on. Is it on Auckland Road or is it on a different? Harwich Road. Harwich Road. So in that case, there are a lot of different articles here. So I think to try to keep things focused, I'm going to ask if any of the councillors here have any questions or that they want to raise at this point in time on this particular item. So we try and keep all the commentary together.
Could I hand some photographs around to the councillors? I didn't do that previously.
Yes, you may. Thank you. Councillor Heaney, I believe you want to say something on this particular item.
I just want to ask some questions to start with. Excuse me. Sorry, I seem to have got... Right, let's start again. I wanted to check on the standards that are put in the report. The standards for parking bays are, if I'm correct, standards that apply for any parking space across the city, no matter what. These are the ones that are used regardless of the condition of the road. Is that correct?
I think there are definitely guidelines which are set down with fixed figures in them. However, there is also an overriding requirement to ensure the free flow of traffic and good network management.
Okay, because there was mention in the report of 2 figures, 6 metres and 5 metres. 5 metres was a possibility. What, in the view of the engineers, would a 5 metre space, would it make any material difference to the ability to access or even go to the garage?
Barbara, as the engineer.
Thank you, Councillor. The 6 metres I was referring to is the parking standard for off-street car parks where parking bays are at a right angle to the running carriageway, as it were. From experience, if the running carriageway was 5 metres, most people for example, with a driveway at right angles to the road would be able to manoeuvre. Many residential roads in other cities or in the north part of this city, where the carriageway is about 5 metres wide plus a footway, can usually manage to enter and exit their driveways even if there's a car parked opposite. So that's where those measurements have come from. But the carriageway in Auckland Road West, as I said, is significantly narrower.
One of the applications mentioned that there are other garages that actually face onto the road, and you can see from the map on the back there that I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, possibly 5 if you look at them, and I think there are some further down the road that are not on the map. So I think they expressed concern that if the council were to agree to do this, although we can't make a definitive decision, it seems that you have set a standard which suggests that if anyone else applied, that it would be very highly likely they would get permission to have the same thing if they could show that there was obstruction getting out of the garage. Is that a reasonable assumption to make, that it would probably be agreed and it would be unlikely to be turned down? So we are in fact setting a bit of a precedent here.
I'm going to be very cautious about agreeing to that statement. So I think people have a reasonable expectation of consistency about the decisions we make. However, each individual decision needs to be looked at individually, and there is some scope for latitude, which is why we have standards rather than mandated numbers.
So there is a bit of discretion in terms of whether you agree or don't agree. And I suppose the question is, where does this one fit on the line? Is it under the line, over the line? That's I suppose the judgment here. I mean, I'm asking these questions quite carefully because clearly, you know, it will have an impact, and I obviously heard both deputations. And the other point, of course, is that we all know that historical parking spaces and historical roads were built when vehicles were either non-existent or much smaller, and we know from our own experience, even the roads where I live, vehicles have now got so large that it's actually quite difficult to park vehicles on the carriageway opposite each other without obstructing passageway there. So I can see an issue. I can see an issue there. The other question I was going to ask is just to clarify. If I understand it right, there isn't a that the vehicles are parked in the garage. There isn't a parking space that is used on Clarence Parade that will be effectively freed up by the fact of the garage being able to. I'm not sure whether that's clear or not.
I think that's not clear, and that's something that we can't be clear about. You know, people have everyone has a right to park in unrestricted car parking spaces. That right is given away in residential parking zones where people have elected to have such a thing in place for a period of time, but then it reverts to a normal road outside of those hours.
I suppose the other concern about losing parking bays is that, as I understand it, this zone doesn't allow a third permit. And in fact, I was speaking to a resident in the area just recently who was asking about some possibly using their frontage to park a car because they couldn't get a third space. So we have a situation where there isn't the possibility of having a third space because I think the zone is considered to be so congested. I think it probably has many more permits than there are spaces, if I remember right, because it was one of the earlier zones that we had.
I'm willing to put that on the record very quickly. Without knowing the specifics of this, the number of third permits across the whole city is in the order of hundreds, whereas we have 90,000 vehicles parked across the city, and the number of vehicles is increasing all the time. And this is one of the areas where there are many places which will contest the claim, but this is certainly one of the areas of the city where parking is already very, very stretched.
Well, I think that's all the questions I wanted to ask, actually, because for members of the public who may not attend these meetings very often, I get to ask questions and I don't get to make a decision. I don't have a vote on this one, so I can only ask questions for the purposes of getting a clarity about what the issues are and expressing a view sometimes.
Well, I'm certainly willing to take comments as well, because I think we have quite a lot of items to get through today, so I'm trying to put them all together. Are there any more questions or comments on this one? Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on now to North Harbour Road, where Mr. Turner.
Thank you. I'm here today, subject to this proposition. You want to put weighting restrictions on the south side of the road, which is doing away with 43 parking spaces. And it's not going to alleviate the problem from the ambulance services, which is why it's all started. in my opinion, if you put yellow lines on the north side of the road, it opens the road wider, and as the ambulance services are only going out on the left-hand side, the north side of the road. So it makes sense to stop cars blocking the north side, then the south side. When they go out, they're in an emergency. When they come back to base. So the north side would be a more logical side to park. There are many, many people relying on those spaces. You've got South Coast ambulances. The people from the hospital park along that road. You've got small businesses, you've got big businesses that will be affected by the parking restrictions. And like you said, there's 90,000 cars in Portsmouth, and to do with another 43 parking spaces doesn't make sense.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions from the councillors here? And I thank Councillor Heaney for helping me point out that the way this meeting works is that it is a single-person decision-making meeting. I make the decision as the Cabinet Member for Transport, but there are representatives from, there are other councillors who contribute and regularly monitor traffic to ensure that we get a wide spread of opinion and perspective on matters. So, any questions or queries on North Harbour? Okay, thank you. I now have Ashurst Road. Any questions? There are no more deputations to make. Any questions on Ashurst Road? Going to move to Jervis Road. Deputations, questions, comments? Going to move to Harwich Road. Mr. Bowers.
Morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like this meeting to be adjourned because we were only given 1 week's notice as to when the meeting was going to take place.
I'm going to overrule that. So a week's notice, I think, is not ideal, but I think is adequate. You've been able to make it down here, and we could have taken
Yes.
written commentary down.
And
people have also had an opportunity during the consultation process to put their thoughts in writing.
I'm one of many people who would have liked to have attended this meeting, but it's a very busy time of year. So, as well, can I ask then, who has actually been up to Harwich Road to look at the parking situation? Is there anyone in this room?
I don't know whether anyone is in this room, but we've certainly had the information necessary to make the decision. I've looked at Harwich Road. I've looked at it both in person and on a map, but I don't go up there on a regular basis.
So you've actually been to Harwich Road?
I have.
Right, okay. So is it the problem with the bin lorries getting down, emergency vehicles getting down there, that they want to put these lines in?
So, strictly, sir, this is a kind of deputation for you to say what you want. If you have some questions that you would like answering, I'm happy to put those out for answering. But just be clear, as it were, your time is running, so make sure that you say what you want to say.
Well, I've lived there for over 30 years, and we don't have a problem parking down that road. And if you put lines in on one side of the road, the south side, you're going to take away 15 plus car parking spaces, and we've already got vulnerable children and adults up the road. So all it's going to do is push all these vehicles round our estate a little more to the roads nearest to us, which is going to create even more problems. This does not really affect me because I've got a double drive up the road. But like I say, I've lived up there for 30 odd years. We don't have a problem. We don't have a problem with large vehicles getting up the road, i.e. bin lorries, emergency lorries, fire engines as such. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So there was a question raised there about turning circles and bin lorries. Barbara, could you speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. The requests came from residents who were one who was being obstructed from being able to use their driveway due to parked cars, and another who's a wheelchair user, who is, because of the cars parked partly on the footway, is forced to take their wheelchair down the middle of the carriageway, with the road safety implications. And yes, I've been there and I've observed that it is narrow. We haven't had specific complaints from the dust cart crews because that wasn't really the nature of the original inquiry.
Sorry, could I just ask the person who complained about it, about getting in and out of their drive, have they got a drop curb?
The person does have a drop curb, yes.
Can I ask which number that is then, and which
No, I'm
side
afraid
of
you
the road
can't,
it is?
Sir, you had an opportunity to make a deputation. I tried to guide you to say that what you wanted to say. This isn't a chance for examination of cross-examination of officers or such things.
I'm asking questions, that's all, it's not cross-examination.
That is effectively what cross-examination is, sir. And the process is you have up to 6 minutes to make your deputation. Then I'm going to now ask whether there are any councillors who have any questions that they would like to ask. Councillor Strudwick.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, because I think the gentleman's referring to the original plan, not the new plan. Because the new plan, to me, it's just at the bottom they're doing the turning circles. So can you just clarify, there's obviously 2 maps in here, and I know there was lots of objections against the double yellow lines the whole way down one side. To my knowledge of this paper, that's not happening anymore, and it's just the turning circle from this sheet is what I'm getting.
Thank you, Councillor. This is a revised plan that the decision maker could use to help him make his decision. So the original proposal is still open, but this is a revised plan as an option.
Right, okay. That makes this whole... Fine, I didn't realise that. So, also, I was under the illusion that a fire brigade had tried to get down this road as well. Did that happen and they couldn't get down?
Not aware of it I'm not aware of it in this occasion. That was Ashurst Road was the one where a fire engine was mentioned.
It's only because when I've spoken to the local councillors for this area, when it came to them, they were informed that it was because a fire engine couldn't get down. So I think there seems to have been a bit of miscommunication of why it's come about, and I can see the gentleman's got that too. And I also thought that meant, because of the amount of objections, that one, it was in the plan as that's what went out for consultation, and then what's been discussed, and this one's the better, and that's what I thought Councillor Candlish was then voting on, was this one, not the other one. I thought that was just being shown as what went out for consultation. Just need clarification on it. So,
please correct me, someone, if I get this process wrong. I think that an initial proposal went out for consultation. That came back with lots of feedback. Alternative things have been done. I am able to reduce the scope of things which were in the consultation. I can't expand it. And within that, there is a proposal which has been put forward, which would limit the location of the double yellow lines towards the top of the horseshoe.
Perfect. Then I would probably, as I have been to this road many, many times, and it is difficult, and I do understand that it is hard to use the pavement, but it is a tiny road, and they are quite well, like if you ask someone to move the car, they will move the car. Displacing that many vehicles, similar to all these proposals, is a massive strain. So if you were minded, I'm not obviously going to tell you what to do, but the second proposal looks best.
Any other questions or comments from the councillors? Councillor Bosher.
I'm just trying to work out the logic of the process that we've got here. I know you can reduce things, but we've gone from one length of a road, by the sound of it, having double yellow lines, to just the turning circle at the end. Is that what I'm seeing? I would argue that that is a very materially different, when you talk about reducing it, having done the role, you're going to reduce it from 5 metres to 3 metres or something like that on a junction. But this sounds like it's materially two different schemes that we're looking at here. And the gentleman has come down here on obviously a week's notice, but that's reasonable, to give a deputation on a scheme that isn't actually being considered. So one wonders whether there's actually been a consultation process on just doing the end of the cul-de-sac and not the entire length of the road. I would suggest that probably you need to defer this one, if I may suggest, Cabinet Member.
Thank you. Go, Bethan, go.
I think it's important to clarify that the revised scheme is a direct result of the public consultation and demonstrates how we've considered the very many objections we received as part of that consultation.
My point, Chair, would be that I hear what you're saying, but has that been communicated that this revised scheme is on the result of public consultation to the residents of the road?
Yes, by me. The resident in question had communicated with us on a number of occasions, representing a number of residents, asking about that, and we kept them informed in that way. It's also outlined in the paper that on the basis of the objections received, we went back to the design to look at it, and that's resulted in the revision that's being presented today as an option.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, I'm now going to move on to Wiley Road, Conan Road, Westwood Road. I don't think I have any. Is there anyone expecting to make a deputation on this? In that case, I'm going to open for questions. Councillor Strudwick, I think you're indicating you want to ask some questions.
Thank you. So obviously I have the revised one is much better than the original one. However, there is still major concerns around the displacement of the vehicles on the Westwood Road. So I don't think anyone that I have spoken to have any issue with the Northern Parade. We can all understand, and obviously Wiley Road into Conan Road, we can all understand you obviously don't want to be reversing into a main road, but the 10-metre stretch is what I can't get my head around on the Westwood Road. So I'm just trying to get more clarification on, because I know it's case by case, does it need to be 10 metres? Have we looked at 5 metres? And all of the objections around there. It just seems that the objections I know would have included Westwood Road. It's answered, the new revised plan has answered obviously the Wiley Road onto Northern Parade, but it hasn't addressed the issues onto Westwood Road. So have we looked into that? Is there a new plan for that? What's kind of gone through the process of 10 metres rather than 5?
There are lots of questions there. Barbara, you're looking to answer at least some of those.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, well, 10 metres is a fairly standard measurement for do not park 10 metres within 10 metres of a junction. It's in the Highway Code. It applies across the country, so we kind of use that as a baseline, and particularly with that junction of Westwood Road and Wiley Road, we have had correspondence with our colleagues in Waste Management who say they frequently encounter difficulties. That's the particular junction where they do find it difficult to get round and sometimes have to make return visits to complete the collections.
Which I get, but the need for 10 metres on both sides, I'm still not. I don't think anybody is complaining. Everyone understands that trying to get around them corners is a nightmare, but doing 5 metres would alleviate that without taking away 4 to 8 car parking spaces with the 10 metres on either side. And obviously, because you're removing the spaces at the bottom and then here, it's adding a lot more pressure to the area. So it's just whether that could be reduced to 5 metres just so that you're not causing a complete displacement of that whole area. because obviously that goes on to Beechwood, whether it was looked at 5 metres on that so that the turning was easier for there, rather than just this one road specific.
I'm not sure there's is there a direct answer or further answer you can give on that one?
My only other answer, further answer would be this: I did get some tracking drawings done, which are a copy of which is in the report, and the engineer doing that independently of me asking them actually suggested that 10 metres of double yellow lines would alleviate the problems that are encountered there at the moment.
I would say that this issue of 5 metres, 10 metres on corners in a city as crowded as Portsmouth is a very challenging one to deal with, because there are two very good logics for both the sort of the maximum and the minimum. Obviously, the longer you make the double yellow lines, the better the visibility, the better the road safety, the more comfortable people feel about crossing roads and things like that. On the other hand, as we've heard several times already today, parking is a major challenge in the city, and losing parking spaces is a big problem. And I hear the comments that Councillor Strudwick has made about the recognition of that in the area, and that specific roads are viewed perhaps differently within the proposal. Any other questions on this? I can see Councillor Strudwick thinking, so if she wants a moment while we do the next one and comes back, I'll go back to it. Although I turn the page and find that this is the last one in the pack. So much for that as a proposal. Before I kind of sum up and make some decisions here, are there any other comments or questions that people want to put on the table? Councillor Strudwick.
It's probably going to be a no, but I'm going to ask it anyway, regarding Conan Road, Westwood Road and Wiley Road. Is it possible just to go ahead with the Northern Parade and the Wiley Road rather than doing the Westwood, so we could have more consultation on that? Because I don't think there's a disapproval of that section, it's the top section.
I am listening very carefully to what Councillor Strudwick has said, so maybe I'll address that in my summing up. Okay, the reason we're here today is because these decisions are in some way difficult and need to be made public. I've made it clear that we're always, nearly always, having to trade off between competing points of view, both of which may be completely incompatible because we either do something or we don't do something. And both of them may be completely reasonable points of view to be taking. But we have to ultimately get to some decisions in the city. And it's my responsibility to make some of those decisions for good or for ill. So I'm going to go through them kind of one by one. On the Thornton Close, I'm happy to take the officer's recommendation. On the Auckland Road, since people are here, I will speak directly to them. I'm going to, ultimately, to avoid too much suspense, I am minded to retain the current existing layout of the road. I absolutely hear and understand that it is a very difficult exercise to get in and out of the garage, but it is a problem of long standing. And this, to something Councillor Heaney was starting to get to, there is also a question about what kind of precedents we're setting across the city. This is an issue that many, many places across the city face, and it, without prejudicing the fact that we will look at each individual case on its own merits, in general, I feel that wherever we can protect parking spaces, we should do so where there isn't too much of an outright safety risk. I know the road quite well. and I absolutely hear the problems that you are talking about of taxis, delivery vans, etc. I think there is also an issue around enforcement. As the pressure on parking grows, there is more and more examples of bad parking of one sort or another, and we are going to have to find some better ways of addressing that. However, that is the decision I'm going to make. We will retain the existing car park. On North Harbour Road, the recommendation of officers to defer for what is a very big decision and which there are clearly issues coming out, I am also happy to take. Taking out 43 parking spaces anywhere is obviously a very big deal, although the size of roads there does make it a slightly different decision. It's not so much of a residential one, but I don't believe that this project has been worked to the fullest it can be, so we will look at this one again. Ashurst Road. Ashurst Road, I am minded to take the officer's recommendation, and also on Jervis Road. On Harwich Road is a very difficult one on which a lot of time has been spent, so really trying to think through the option and to see what to do. It is a classic case of conflicting sort of rights and desires. You can make a very good case for doing many things in the area. An issue was raised about the level of communication about what was going on with the scheme. I believe enough communication has been made to understand the problem, and at the end of the day, it is my responsibility to make a decision based on, the question is, do I have enough information to make the decision? And I have looked at the road both on maps and in person. I try to go to all of them if I can. There was also questions as to whether this was a materially different scheme by virtue of reducing the scope that was put out in the consultation. In my view, because this is a cul-de-sac and the length of road is not huge, although actually there is quite a number of vehicle parking spaces changed, I believe it is a reduction in the scope of the scheme rather than a completely new scheme. So I don't feel the need to go out of it. I also think that having done that sort of due diligence about understanding the problem, I'm not sure that I would make a different decision if we went back out to consultation. And I think that in a difficult choice, the option of ensuring that the turning circle, because that is effectively what it is kept clear, is important and useful to the area, which also resolves the issues about dropped curb, which I noticed there's also even the local PCSO was in support of. So my ruling there is that we will go ahead, we will put the double yellow lines only on the end of the street, and to be honest, although it is not best practice, we will have to then monitor it and just see how it goes. I think that is my ruling. On the Wiley Road, Conan Road, Westwood Road, this also has the potential to displace an awful lot of parking in another area where parking is a problem. I think there was some discussion that I thought was useful today about possibly moderating the proposal. So I am inclined to defer this decision to explore the options that Councillor Strudwick has started to raise. We may or may not come back and make a different decision, but I think we will take one last look at it. All the information is on the table. Though if there's any other feedback that wants to be put into the process, now is a great moment to be doing it. So that's a deferral. And that brings us to the end of that item. So I'm now going to move to item 4 on the agenda, which is proposed disabled persons parking bay, PO 3225. And speaking on that is Barbara.
Thank you, Councillor. Disabled persons parking bays are introduced in residential areas to assist those residents who have disabilities to be able to park close to their homes and to minimise the distance they have to travel between their home and their car. The proposed disabled bays are advertised in batches of around 40 or 50 or so as a single traffic regulation order, along with removal of redundant bays. This particular one, the TRO reference P03225, advertised the installation of 18 new bays and removal of 15 redundant bays at various locations across the city. When this was published, we received one objection to the proposed disabled bay in Whale Island Way. The grounds of the objection are that this is a permit parking scheme. Residents already pay for a parking permit. They feel that there aren't sufficient parking spaces as it is, and this proposal would remove another parking space. They also feel that the applicant is not eligible for a number of reasons. However, we've investigated that, and we're satisfied that the eligibility criteria are satisfied, and that we recommend that the bay should be put in accordance with council policies.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? I don't believe there are any delegate. Is there a deputation? In that case, my apologies, sir. Sorry. Mr. Lashley, I apologise. I hadn't put a circle around your name to call you at this moment. So if you have a deputation to give, please do so now. I'll give you sort of 6 minutes or so to do so.
I'm one of many residents that live on Whale Island Way, and I represent them as well. Living on a narrow residential road in Portsmouth with only 24 to 25 houses, parking has always been a bit of a challenge for us all. As residents who dutifully pay for their parking permits, we are already struggling with limited parking spaces. Now the council is planning to add yet another disability bay on our street, which I've got, and us as the residents, I've got nothing against any of that, who is legitimately eligible for one. We have one resident down the road who's him and his wife. He's dying. His wife has got Alzheimer's and a few other problems. They're eligible for a disabled bay, but they won't do it for the simple reason it's taken up someone else's bay. It's taken up the bay of a fairly good street. This has caused some considerable frustration amongst the residents, as it seems disproportionately compared to the actual need to express. It's important to mention that the individual to whom the new bay is designated is having some issues. Is fit enough for substantially distances to walk substantially distance in participating in any everyday activities. Many of us have seen them running up and down the road in the street, reinforcing the belief that another designated spot is unnecessary. We emphasise that with people who generally need accessibility services, but the over allocation of disability bays in our small residential is having adverse impact on those who struggle to find day-to-day parking for work, school and other responsibilities. Surely a fair assessment of actual need is for disability parking should lead to more balanced and effective use of our limited spaces. Now, they have got a parking area, car park down the end of the road, which no one's claiming to have own. We have approached the council. They apparently said they don't own it. Now, this gets full up daily by people who work in the ferry port that come and just park there all day. The council on their websites have said that, yeah, come to Portsmouth, park in this car park. Is that really right? Because it's, again, taking up our spaces. So putting a disabled bay between two bays, there's one bay, a space, and then another disabled bay. There's 4 to 5 down that road already. There's not enough spaces for the households. Do you know what I mean? So basically, you're squeezing another disabled bay in between this. In a minute, it's just well name it a disability street, because it's actually getting ridiculous for having this, you know what I mean? And pushing other people out of the city. The person who I was on about just a minute ago, about who's got cancer and his wife's disabilities and God knows what, the other day they had to park over the other side of the motorway, walk through a dodgy type of thing, subway, to get to their home. Now, again, taking another bay away, it's going to make the whole street and anyone else's parking worse. So we are against this. I've got a petition here of every single person in that road who's gone against this, who agrees with what we said. We've had meetings and God knows what. So that's what I'm here today, to put this across. Also the petition against the appraised.
Thank you, Mr. Lashley. Any questions from the other councillors here? One of the questions you raised was about the kind of the ownership of the land and the status of that, and that is actually a complicated question. The area is being looked at. This proposal is narrowly focused on the question of whether a disability bay is to be introduced. So that is the only question we're looking at here. I understand there is a wider question about parking in that area, usage, indeed ownership of the land, and where control of that lies and what should be done with it. That's something that will be addressed but is outside of the scope of this meeting. So, looking at this report, are there any questions or queries to raise? Okay, I'm therefore going to make a ruling on this one. It is absolutely true, as we've heard several times already today, that parking is an issue across the city. Space is getting squeezed from all manner of different things. Some areas even get people from outside the city coming to use them, and I understand the frustration of residents, how they feel about that. But the truth is, many people have to walk quite some distance now to find a parking space in the evening, and underpasses and other ways of reaching it are sometimes necessary to do that. And without wholesale change in how we organise parking in the city, that is just a truth and reality. In terms of this specific application, I am aware that concerns have been raised by local residents about the validity of the claim for the person to come forward and to propose the addition of an additional disability spot in the area. The fact that there are several there already, and indeed that some areas, some streets, often now have multiple disability spots within a very narrow area, which can cause problems for that particular street, is an unfortunate reality of the fact that society is ageing, and as an overall council policy, we say that anyone who qualifies for the criteria of for a disability bay, at the moment we are prioritising that over general street traffic. At some point, that may have to be reconsidered, but we are not at that point yet. The final one then is, for a decision-making point of view, I have to rely on officers to do investigations of these applications, and they found that the applicants are meeting the criteria that have been set down for the obtaining of a blue badge, of a disabled parking bay. So, based on that, I'm going to rule that the additional disabled parking bay can be put into the space in line with the officer's recommendation. But I will also note for the record that the wider issue of parking there will also be considered separately. Okay, thank you. We'll move now on to item number 5, which is the proposed permit parking scheme in Cosham, BG zone, PO625, and I've got 3 people down to speak, and I'm just going to take them in the order that I have them in my papers, which is Martine Parry to speak first, Everyone's got about 4 minutes or so please, unless you agree amongst yourselves that you want to share the time out in a different way.
I think we'll go individually if that's okay. Okay, good morning, councillors. I'm Martine Parry. Thank you for the opportunity to speak against the proposed resident permit parking zone scheme, BG zone. Jake Dealey and I, sitting next to me, conducted extensive surveying with the residents in the area concerned in May and June of this year. We split the area between us. My focus was the road that I live in, Whitley Court Drive and Dorking Crescent. Mr. Dealey will furnish details of his findings against the scheme later. My findings were as follows. Over 77% of the residents of Whitley Court Drive have shown by signing the petition that they are against the proposed parking permit scheme. No residents indicated they were interested in the adoption of the scheme. Just to add, I did send the petition details into the TRO. The majority of residents in Dorking Crescent who took part in the survey were against the scheme. This was over 82% of those consulted. 7% of those consulted were in favour of the scheme. We were asked by concerned residents in neighbouring areas to sign the petition against the scheme due to the impact of limited parking driving residents outside of the area. A specific example of impact outside the proposed scheme was the effect on parking for teachers at local schools. A summary of major reasons given by those against the scheme by speaking with the community include: 1, there are few issues with parking currently, so the scheme is not required. 2, the majority of residents are facing different levels of poverty and the scheme is seen to be a revenue generating project. In other words, residents cannot afford the costs. 3, the proposed scheme is looking to tackle issues that can be addressed in other ways. 4, they feel that there was not an in-depth consultation on the issue. 5, no one we spoke to had received a letter about the scheme. 6, the communications focused on notices on lampposts about the scheme was inadequate. The council should have done better communicating with the community. On this point, the council could be in violation of the gunning principles for public consultation, especially as not all residents were given the opportunity to gain the information required to give an appropriate response, and many were unable to respond digitally as required by the council. In no way should those who have not been able to give their views be assumed to be in favour of the scheme. Mr. Dealey and I did a follow-up meeting with residents and we discovered that Park Grove residents were adamant as being against the scheme as they are happy with the current system they have in place, which is a permit parking scheme, by the way. Businesses in the area have indicated that they will be detrimentally affected by the scheme should it go ahead. In summary, Mr. Dealey and I found that the majority of residents surveyed were against the proposed scheme. We support the recommended action against the proposed scheme. Just a few words about environmental concerns, if there would be any. The parking scheme does not alter the number of cars on the streets and will not have a positive environmental outcome in terms of emissions. Looking at additional car parks and park and ride schemes certainly would help. My final point, as a resident of Whitley Court Drive, is that, in my opinion, the majority of residents are in favour of a double yellow lines for the end of our cul-de-sac, that's a turning circle, but against double yellows for the recess towards the end of the road. It's unclear from the details that I had which area was under consideration within the focus of today's meeting. The latter area could displace 4 or 5 cars into other areas should that go ahead. So clarification would be very welcome on that. And that ends my deputation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and my apologies. I let you go there because I realised halfway through we have not actually had the officer presentation on this report, but it seemed unfair to stop you at that point. So if we can hold your thoughts in mind, your deputation in mind, but now go back and have the officer presentation, which is going to be given by Oliver.
Thank you. So this report is regarding the proposed BG zone permit parking scheme in Cosham. And the purpose of the report is to consider the feedback received and recommendations following the formal consultation on the proposed residence parking zone in the Cosham Station North area, BG zone, for which the traffic regulation order P006-25 was advertised on the 17th of May 2025. So the recommendations is recommended that the Cabinet Member for Transport does not approve the implementation of the proposed residence parking zone in the Cosham Station North area, but it does approve the implementation of the no waiting at any time restrictions proposed on the turning head at the southern end of Woodley Court Drive as advertised in the same traffic regulation order. So in March 2024, informal surveys were sent to Marbury Lane / Cosham Station North area, and a 32% response rate overall was received. 47% were supportive of an RPZ, 45% were against an RPZ, and 8% gave no answer. It was evident from the results, as shown in Appendix F, there was a geographical split of level of support among residents who provided a response, with 61% of responses from the streets south of Park Lane being supportive of the scheme. There was less support for an RPZ on streets further away from Cosham Station, northeast of Park Lane. So due to the higher level of support, the area south of Park Lane was then taken through formal consultation with proposed restrictions to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which was consistent with the BA RPZ nearby. The BA RPZ was proposed to be incorporated in the BG RPZ, dependent on the responses from BA zone residents. The proposed scheme also included no waiting at any time restrictions on the turning head of Woodley Court Drive. So 82 responses were received in response to the notice of intent, 13 were in support of the proposal, 69 objected. So a clear majority, 84% of respondents therefore objected to the proposed RPZ at the formal TRO consultation stage. 13 objections were received from Park Grove, the existing BA zone residents, not wanting to become part of the proposed new RPZ. Some Woodley Court Drive residents expressed concerns that the double yellow lines at the turning head would not be implemented if the RPZ were not approved. And we also received one submission of 2 petitions from residents. Due to the statutory TRO consultation already existing, these petitions do not officially count in line with the PCC petition scheme guidelines. However, the sentiment of these petitions has been included in the report and does demonstrate strong opposition to the proposed RPZ. So the reasons for the recommendations: it is proposed not to implement the BG resident parking zone due to the majority of the 82 respondents, 84%, objecting to the scheme at formal consultation stage, and the recommendation to implement the proposed no waiting at any time restrictions proposed on the turning head at the southern end of Woodley Court Drive, as they retain the support of Woodley Court Drive residents and would help to prevent obstructive parking and enable the turning head to be used for its intended purpose.
Thank you. If we could all now just imagine that Martine Parry's deputation is now, and I will thank her for it again, and then ask Jake Deely to speak, please.
Good morning, councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jake Deely. I'm a local resident from 26 Lonsdale Avenue. From the 16th of May to the 3rd of June, I gathered signatures and opinions from residents in the areas outlined in the proposed BG zone. The areas of Dorking Crescent and Woodley Court Drive, also within the proposed BG zone, were assessed by Martine Parry. Her findings are not included in my deputation. A total of 181 residents participated in my petition. Of those 181 residents, 70% were against the proposal, 18% were in favour of the proposal, and 11% did not express a preference for or against the proposal. During my consultation with residents on Knowsley Road, many raised concerns about the lack of action by Portsmouth City Council in removing unroadworthy vehicles that belong to particularly well-known locals. Residents feel that requiring permits would simply add costs without addressing the underlying problem that creates the need for a permit parking zone. Many also suggested increasing free parking outside residential areas in Cosham. They saw this as another way to solve the problem without burdening residents financially. Residents on Salisbury Road expressed strong disapproval of the proposal, feeling it is completely unnecessary. A resident who takes pride in her front garden and wants to do her bit for the environment said she would have to replace it with a driveway because she cannot afford the permits for her family. Residents across all roads also expressed broader concerns, including the impact on property values, the cost of parking for friends and family visiting, the wider cost of living crisis, and the effect on parking availability for NHS workers. On the 5th of December, Miss Parry and I held an event at the Community Kettle in Cosham, giving local residents the opportunity to share their views on the proposal. Residents from Park Grove expressed that they would prefer to keep the permit parking zone in their area, the BA zone, as it is. In conclusion, based on all my findings, I recommend that the BG zone should not be implemented, as it won't be in the best interests of the local community.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Tom Maisie.
Hi, yeah. I've got notes on my phone, I'm not texting. So I'm Tom Maisie, resident of Hillary Avenue, which is directly off of Salisbury Road. Over the last few years, kind of post-COVID, I've been working with other residents, Court Lane School, Councillor Shah, you've attended the road yourself, basically around a lot of the issues we see at pick-up and drop-off time. One of the things we did discuss was permit parking, and I know that my objection here has actually been raised in private already, but I want it to be very public and seen by all, basically. So my objection is to the boundaries of the zone, not necessarily to the zone itself. Essentially, I believe that if you put this zone in and it ends in Salisbury, you're going to displace a lot of traffic into Hillary Avenue, Beaconsfield and Court Lane, where currently there's barely capacity as it is. I think this is going to put the lives of the parents, the children, the crossing patrols, the teachers, the residents at serious risk, because it's already pretty bad. Currently, in the proposed permit zone, as people have mentioned, there's a lot of QA workers who park there. In Salisbury Road, there's one family, is in one house, that has 7 vehicles, a lot of them quite large. There's the resident in Knowsley Road, who at peak, they had about 16 vehicles, many of which were long wheelbase vans, Luton vans and the like. Our roads would then be the next non-permitted road. So those would all be displaced into our roads, essentially. To further compound the problem, in the work I've been doing in Court Lane School, they told me they've got about 150 staff on site. So they've only got 20 parking spaces. At the minute, lots of teachers do park on the road. I think no one has a huge problem with that. But that does mean the road is literally at capacity. At pick-up and drop-off time, you'll see, as you did see, that many of the driveways, many of the forecourts where there's parking, and even people's actual own parking on their forecourts gets taken up by parents. So I think there's going to be a very heightened risk of a serious traffic incident, because you're going to see even more parents parking on the no waiting single yellows, and also on the zigzags, which is already a problem. So in conclusion, I think that before you could consider this parking zone, you'd have to look at the boundaries. You'd also have to take some very strong action on the current parking issues for the school, and also on the behavioural issues of people using the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Heaney.
Yeah, I do have a question. It's about the survey results. I'm slightly confused. I mean, I used to be councillor for Cosham, many years, 95 to 2004, so I know the area very well. And when I was reading this, and I sort of read it again, and I thought, am I missing something here? And it talks about because what's happened, there's been an informal survey, and what appears to have happened is that 2 areas of the surveyed zone have different views. The top half not in favour, the bottom half in favour. So what the council did was then formally consult on the bottom half. And then that has turned out to be a negative. But when I was looking at the figures for the consultation, I got a little bit confused, because it says on page 2, paragraph 3, to an informal survey of residents of the Mulberry Lane area, questionnaires were sent to 743 households. Now, the residents made this comment about the consultation, and apparent they were concerned about what happened. So 743 for the whole of the proposed area, that's Mulberry Lane and the area south, so the whole of the proposed BG. And then it says the informal survey had people in favour of progressing it in the lower half. And then it says a formal consultation was carried out 17th of May 25 to June 25, and 788 households were sent letters. But that is in the smaller area. So, was it right to say that there was only a sample survey in the informal survey that covered both bits, Mulberry Lane and the bit south, and then we did a more intensive consultation with the households on the formal consultation, because the numbers don't seem to add up. The informal survey was to the bigger area, the formal consultation was to the smaller area, yet the figures are 743 and 788. So we seem to have consulted more households in the area where we were going for, where there was support than we did previously. So I'm a bit confused about the figures. Maybe I have misread it, but it did look a bit odd.
I'm going to look for help in answering the specifics. As a general principle, I don't believe we've discovered more houses in the second time, and I believe the intention will have been to have done kind of the areas which are given letters, it will have been to every household within the area. So first of all, on the principle, and then if anyone can shine any light on the number.
Yeah, so we'd have to go away and double check the numbers, but yeah, the principle is that every house, to start with in the informal area, was consulted, and then in the formal, smaller area. So I'd have to check those numbers, but yeah, it was all houses.
I think if I'm also correct and answering some of the questions about consultation, from a legal point of view, I think the letters are not actually part of that process. We choose to do that because we try to involve more people in it. Councillor Heaney, I think you have a follow-up question.
Yeah, follow-up is do we sort of hand-deliver the letters, or do we do via the post? Because, I mean, I've had a consultation about an issue which is a minor traffic issue, which has come by the post, and I got it one day and my neighbours got it about 5 days later. So it was a bit of a sort of, do we hand-deliver it or do we do it by the postal service?
It's by post.
I will not be drawn into conversations about Royal Mail delivery times in Portsmouth. Any other questions, sorry, with the microphone on? So, few things to say on this one, because I think there's actually some important principles here, and then eventually we'll get to what I think is going to be a fairly obvious decision. So, it is absolutely true that the creation of an RPZ creates boundaries, and boundaries therefore lead to issues with displacement. There is no question that will occur from time to time, and you can see as the issue of RPZs has rippled out from some small places to more and more of the city where that has occurred. There were also some questions about whether this was being done on an environmental basis. RPZs are not really, they may have a second order effect about environmental concerns, but they are centred around parking. Is it going to be something that local residents feel will help the parking situation in their area? As I mentioned, I think actually in practice the council exceeds the minimum legal thresholds for doing things. It is extraordinarily difficult to get everyone to be aware of things. We consistently deliver to every household, sending it out through the Royal Mail, and people say that they have not received information about it. Part of that, unfortunately, is because of the time. Sometimes people forget that they have received them, or one person receives the letter in the household, reads it through, but doesn't pass it on to the other people. We do make all reasonable efforts to make sure that people are consulted. Those people who think that charging £30 for a first permit fee are part of a money-grabbing exercise by the council, well, the price has not gone up for many, many years, and Councillor Bosher, who speaks with authority on some of these matters from the past, is indicating that it may be many, many years since this has moved. So if we were making this into a money-making scheme, I'll not go too much further with this. It's not even keeping pace with inflation, because we recognise that residents feel that it is an excessive burden. I think if you put it in the context of a whole year and what you now pay typically when you go to any city's car park, the the price is not great if you think it is going to benefit your area. There was some interesting discussion about, I forget whether someone said they were abandoned or just left for an extraordinarily long time parked on the road. That is a real issue in the city, and that is one of the things that RPZs can help address, because part of the limits of the scheme is typically that you have 2 permits per postal address. So if someone has 7, they have 5 vehicles they have to find a different solution for. So it definitely helps the people within that area. You can argue what happens to those 5 vehicles if they are displaced, reduced or moved, but people who are running informal, garage operations selling cars are restricted by that. And if there are large HMOs in the area, they will only get 2 permits. So there are some restrictions on the number of vehicles that go in. It does have an implication. In terms of cars being parked on the road, if a car is taxed and MOT'd, it may have a right to sit on there and it doesn't have to move. If it is truly abandoned, weeds growing up around it, and it is not legally allowed, actually please report it, because we can then take action about it. It is not always known to the council that these things are there. So please do pass those ones on. Okay, I'm now going to come back to the main thrust of the matter. It is clear from the work that is done that although there was enough initial interest some years ago to put this area into consultation, and this is the last one of a whole raft of RPZs that were put forward for doing, it is clear that at this moment in time there is absolutely not an appetite for doing this. There's a majority of people saying no, so I am not going to agree to the introduction of an RPZ. And that concludes the business for today at 11:28. Thank you very much to everyone for coming today on a workday moment. Councillor Bosher, you have something to say.
I think if I go back to one of the deputations was talking about some double yellow lines in Woodley Court Road being wrapped up in this. By refusing that, does that refuse that, or is that a separate recommendation that needs to be considered?
It is a separate recommendation, and I thank Councillor Bosher for once again saving my bacon about missing an item on the recommendations. I struggle sometimes with the formality of the process. There was a second recommendation around putting double yellow lines in a turning circle. That seems to make a great deal of sense for me, so I support that, and therefore, in conclusion, I agree with the recommendations as set out in the report, which say that is what we should do.
Excuse me, could I ask for clarification as to exactly where that turning circle is on the planning? It's just that there are 2 areas that I've been told, one at the very end of the cul-de-sac and one in the middle of the cul-de-sac. Could someone clarify, please?
It's outside house number 20.
That would be the traditional turning circle then at the end. Thank you.
So I'm just checking, is the map that we have drawn consistent with that position? My understanding was it was in the core turning circle.
Yeah, so it's the turning circle, I say outside house number 20, is where the no waiting at any time restrictions are proposed, and that's recommended.
It's a contiguous area, one area, or 2. I'm trying to find the map in front of me. I don't have that map in my pack. Do we have a copy of the map here?
But I confirm it is just the southern end, not the northern end. So outside house number 20 is when you go all the way down Widley Court Drive to the end, and it's both sides, the whole turning head. The southern end, yes, not the northern end. I think that's what you were asking for, I believe.
Yes, that's what I was expecting. And just to clarify that the double yellows would be just at the end and not going down the road on either
Correct.
side from
Yes,
that.
Just at the turning head at the southern
Yeah,
end.
and that's what we wanted as residents. So thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Okay, you had me worried for a moment that there was something other that I'd missed. Thank you. Okay, that does conclude the meeting now at 11:32. Thank you.